McDonald's Monopoly. I won a free cheeseburger last time I went there.
This is just another example of why I edit things. Leon Zhao is an assistant professor at the City University of Hong Kong who researches the regulation of gambling-like products like loot boxes and gacha mechanics, whose many papers on this subject I stumbled upon whilst trying to sound knowledgeable.
I think most people, if you go and ask them about what gambling is, and if you describe to them a loot box and ask them whether they think that's gambling or not, you're far more likely to get an answer saying, yes, that's gambling. I would defend the existing legal definition for gambling. There's a reason why it is restricted. Even the current definition for gambling, the current UK legal definition for gambling, means that some loot boxes are in breach. They do satisfy the definition for gambling, and because that company does not have a gambling license, means that those loot boxes constitute illegal gambling. We are looking at the loot boxes whose rewards can be transferred between players and therefore can be bought and sold between players. There are some very popular games in which this is possible, such as Counter-Strike, such as EAFC. Yes, the game companies disallow players to make these transactions, but it is factually possible for these transactions to be made. If it's a traditional casino and the casino says, oh, the poker chip is not actually worth any real world money, but actually people are trading the poker chips for real money, that is never going to fly. But why is it allowed to fly in the video game context? Just because the company claims that according to our terms and conditions, they are not worth any real world money. But in fact, they are worth real world money. The Gambling Commission has just not been enforcing the law, even to the extent that it is able to do so.
Now that's definitely something to make your brain think. In case you're unaware, out there in the wild exist numerous third-party grey market sites where players can buy and sell in-game currencies and items in order to give them a competitive edge. And I say competitive edge in insanely bold air quotes because in some cases it's just straight up cheating. For instance, FIFA, or now called EAFC, is one of the most egregious examples of pay to win that I've ever experienced, with better cards that you actually pack in-game giving you an insane advantage over other players. Shown by the fact that on this website called U7Buy, the best card in the game could get me a round-trip flight to Cancun. Obviously, this doesn't come close to some of the sums in other games like CS, but the very fact that someone is probably typing that exact sentence into the comment section right now tells us everything. I could make this exact point about so many different games, but surely the mere presence of these sites, definitionally, if that's a word, means that it's gambling. The rewards that you are receiving could drastically outweigh the amount that you've put in. Of course, third-party sellers are absolutely rife with scams, schemes, fraud and malware, something that the child version of Henry can absolutely attest to, with players repeatedly being warned against this, being told that doing so risks their entire account being permanently banned. But again, doesn't the sheer number and popularity of these third-party sites point to something much more important? The fact that players feel like they have such little hope of getting any of these rarer in-game items through actual gameplay, that 12-year-old Henry was ready to risk it all and buy FIFA coins through some random Donny on eBay because he felt like it was the only viable option. What does any of that say about how this system actually works? Depending on where you are in the world, publishers are often required to show players the specific odds of receiving a certain in-game item before you actually open the loot box. But as you're about to see, that's like saying the royal family are required to contribute something to society other than novelty plates, funny faces on a coin and fancy cutlery.
This was a loot box in a Sims game. This is from a couple of years ago. The problem with this one is it doesn't add up to 100%. Right? 96 plus 1.8 plus 1.8, that's not 100%. That's example one. That's very low chance, medium chance,
What does that mean?
Nah.
It's both incredibly depressing but also hilarious to think about, because if we flash back to something I made reference to at the start of this video, as a part of Cognisphere's $20 million settlement with the FTC, one of the changes they actually agreed to was to disclose on the loot box purchase screen, without requiring any additional inputs from the players, accurate probabilities. How many other games does this happen in? I mean, how on earth did EA get away with that? Less than 1%? Do you mean 0.8% or perhaps 0.0001%? Because both would be correct here, but mean drastically different things. One would be the odds of me winning a game against this many seats at a local showing of Hamnet, and the other would involve me beating the entire state of Delaware. Brother, I've got better odds winning the Beast games. At least in that scenario, I'd maybe get some Feastables. Actually, you know what? Delaware isn't looking too bad right about now. Thanks, old brother. At every possible opportunity, these profit-driven companies will find a way to do the least amount of work they possibly can, as shown by the fact that when South Korea made companies disclose accurate loot box probabilities, EA Sports decided to make the most ethical and fun decision available to them and stop selling loot boxes in the country entirely. Is that not an insane red flag? Which is clearly something that an innocent person would do. Presuming that is, there wasn't a white 1993 Ford Bronco lying about for anyone to do a quick joyride in. As you can see, this system clearly works flawless. Actually, for that statement to be true, there would actually need to be a system in place, and this is sort of where the whole Jenga tower comes tumbling down. Over here, for example, this has been a hotly contested topic for a number of years at this point, going all the way back to September of 2019, where the Digital Culture, Media and Sport Committee called for the Gambling Act of 2005 to be extended to include loot boxes. So I'm assuming it'll happen any day now? Obviously this never happened, with the government having a truly brilliant idea instead to let the industry look after itself. Wow, what a stroke of genius. After congregating some representatives from the video games industry, the trade body known as the United Kingdom Interactive Entertainment, or UKI, published the 11 industry principles on loot boxes. I've really tried to amp that up as much as I can, but as you're about to see, they're about as effective as a condom full of holes at an STD fair. Most of them repeat things that are painfully obvious from a prior principle, whilst also leaving enough room to be both insanely vague and open-ended. It's a great nighttime read. I mean, let's just start right away with principle 1. You'd assume you'd have to come out the gates swinging, but instead make available technological controls to effectively restrict anyone under the age of 18 from acquiring a loot box without the consent or knowledge of a parent, carer or guardian. So hold up for a minute. They're either asking under 18-year-olds to knowingly rat themselves in, you know, notably the most trustworthy age group, or in another twist of fate, the onus is shifting onto the parents, so they have to take control of it, rather than, I don't know, the companies that are letting children fucking gamble. Principle 4. Disclose the presence of loot boxes prior to purchase and download of a game so that players can make informed choices. Again, this is absolutely garbage. To test this, I scrolled through multiple storefronts and just went digging. Out of the three, Xboxes was arguably the most visible, with this tiny little message right about here. But for the Nintendo eShop and the PlayStation Store, it very much felt like they wanted me to go on a scavenger hunt. On the PlayStation Store, for example, you'd have to find a game like, let's look at Madden 26, scroll all the way down to the product description, click on that, then scroll all the way down to the bottom of that description where you'll see this single little line. Why isn't it plastered center stage? The really weird thing is that for certain games, like for example Infinity Nikki, it does show this little tag that says includes random items, but for some reason games like Madden don't have that little tag. It's really strange. You do have this little Peggy icon over here that just clarifies in-game transactions, but crucially, that statement is wildly misleading. Most games with loot boxes should have this magical little line that says includes random items, even though Madden clearly forgot. But surely this phrase in-game purchases needs to be expanded a bit. For example, you have that exact same generic line of text for Mario Kart 8, but also Marvel Rivals and EA FC 26. If I bought every single in-game purchase available to me in Mario Kart 8, that would set me back around 22 quid. But on Wednesday the 7th of January alone, if I did that exact same thing inside of EA FC 26, that would set me back £568.42. And for Marvel Rivals, a mind-melding £1,535.80 worth of skins. Clearly, those numbers are exactly the same. Before finally, my absolute favourite, Principle 11, work with the UK government and other relevant stakeholders to measure the effectiveness of these principles. Are you kidding me? Your final pledge is a pledge to monitor how well your other pledges do. Is that not implied? Was there a word count to hit? Why couldn't you just stop at 10? This is a story as old as time. Whenever pressure's building up and legislation feels unavoidable, the industry's first line of defence is self-regulation. It has the double advantage of making the industry seem to understand the problem and of depicting the proponents of the law as well-meaning but misguided. Such agreements appear attractive to governments, but repeatedly fail for the simple reason that they are not intended to succeed. That line was very powerful, if I do say so myself. The one problem with that, though, it's taken word for word from the World Health Organization's 2000 article about self-regulation in the tobacco industry. You know, that famously child-friendly industry that you want to be compared to. It is just wild how many similarities there are between the two. As public opinion was starting to ramp up in 1953, these massive tobacco companies put aside their differences and joined forces by essentially spending millions of dollars funding research proving that tobacco did not cause cancer. I think we all know how that turned out.
It's true. The babies born from women who smoke are smaller. And some women would prefer having smaller babies.
Everybody smokes nowadays. On reruns of Mad Men, just listen to this absolute doozy from 1969. Scooby-Doo had just been created, the Beatles released Abbey Road, and to top it off, allegedly, we landed on the moon. Internal documents within the industry leaked at the time, insisting that doubt is our product, spread out over scientific evidence, and the public won't know what to believe. Yuki's 11 principles may sound impressive, but it's all an illusion. Nothing is really being enforced here, because they don't have the resources or power available to them to do anything.
Yuki, a spokesperson, did say that there will be very heavy negative consequences for people who break the rules. But as it turns out, there are no such consequences. I looked at games that broke the rules, and I sent a list of those games to the government and also to Yuki and asked them to take action against those games. And when I looked at those games again a number of months later, they were still all non-compliant. Nothing has changed. And in fact, they have since significantly backtracked on that, saying that, it's not their responsibility to enforce these rules.
They have the authority of a cat in a suit and tie. They may look like they mean business, but they have no idea what's going on. Just look at Principle 8, continue to tackle the unauthorised external sale of items required from loot boxes for real money. And who could forget Principle 5, give clear probability disclosures. Well, I think it's clear both of those must have gone down like a lead balloon.
The problem with this is so many decimal points, right? And things like 0.00515, 0.0008. We've seen very, very small percentages, especially in relation to the sports simulation games, because they have so many possible rewards. And some of those chances are lower than your chances of winning the lottery. But they disclose these, right? This one, you need to make the calculation yourself. It is 1 million divided by the amount of soul stones, which I think you need to gather yourself, to the 1.5 power, and then you also need to insert these different numbers into this equation before you can know your probabilities.
And they're all targeted kids, and they're expecting kids to do like something to the power of that's insane.
And unfortunately, with what we know about numeracy, even many adults would have difficulties understanding percentage-based information.
Children have a reduced ability to re-exert self-control. and have more difficulty understanding variation and probability in games. Less than 1% is at best meaningless and at worst outright deceptive to a player spending money in a game hoping to obtain a high value card. This quote comes direct from a report published by the Norwegian Consumer Council in May of 2022, and it speaks to the very core of this entire thing. If someone is constantly bombarded with colourful prompts and splash screens whenever they open a game, showing the beautiful new items that are now available but only until this conveniently placed timer runs out, and the probabilities that they are presenting to those same players are either purposely misleading or unintelligible to someone that doesn't have a PhD in statistics and code breaking, what else do they think is going to happen here? Later in that same report from the NCC, they dispute a claim from EA that all cards in the game are available without paying for microtransactions, in which they found in order to reach the average probability of packing a Team of the Year card, which for those unaware are some of the most wanted cards in the game, players would have to play for around 2,500 hours, or roughly 1/3 of a year of continuous gameplay. That is just to guarantee one item from a single release. If you wanted the best card in the game, you would have to play 24/7 for over 3 years. By the way, you've only got about 2 weeks until those cards aren't in packs anymore, so best of luck. The only way that statement makes sense is that if EA think we're all in possession of the fucking time stone. What are they talking about? From personal experience, I know full well the insane social pressure that ratchets up whenever a limited edition special card comes out for a short window of time. You're in a voice chat with your mate, someone's going bonkers because they've just packed something insane, and very much like getting taken out in a horror movie, one by one, everybody begins to buckle. These organisations have constructed their loot boxes in such a way that each mechanic carefully takes inspiration from the world of casinos, slot machines and roulette wheels. So much so that you experience the same emotions when you inevitably strike it big. From flashing lights, insanely obnoxious sound effect cues, and then just a straight up slot machine. This is the exact same reason that casinos do this. A study from Maria Cherksakova at the University of British Columbia had more than 100 adults playing laboratory gambling games that featured sensory feedback. They found that the more imagery and slot machine sounds they played, the riskier the decisions these fully grown adults made. Well, that rhymed. Without that sensory overload, participants demonstrated more restraint in their decision making, yet somehow they can continually deny the similarities, implying that it's exactly the same as opening a Pokemon pack or a Kinder Egg, or in the words of a former EA Sports president, opening cigarette cards from the 1920s and 30s. You know, that universal childhood experience. In the same year as that NCC report at Loughborough Newcastle University, doctors Rachel Gordon, Sarah Mills and James Ash sent evidence to the UK government that looked at the connections between paid reward systems and gambling. They stated how loot boxes and card packs may feel familiar as part of a children's collectible culture, but there are striking differences. The use of gambling-style techniques to simulate a win, the portrayal of near misses when items won are revealed.
Why is it like that?
Because of course, if you've just experienced something like that, where you feel you are moments away from hitting the jackpot, of course you're going to go again. You may feel like I've just absolutely bombarded you with stats, statistics and research, and to be honest, that's absolutely the case, but this was by design. There is a truly bonkers amount of research and real-life examples that show the painstakingly obvious connection between loot boxes and gambling. Most of you watching this probably knew that already. You didn't really need me to spell it out for you. And yet, nothing meaningful is being done. Just a few weeks ago, over here, the decision was deferred once again. Unless these game companies are physically forced to do so, they're very much like rats on a sinking ship. They'll find a way to squirm out of the danger. I mean, every single one of them have access to this magical machine that eternally prints money. It's gotten so bad that die-hard gamers will spam social media feeds saying that the game is dead or washed when a company doesn't release something new that people can spend their money on. It's like, we just want the shiny new objects. We're no different from crows. In what world would they see the way this current arrangement is playing out and go, you know what, let's stop vulnerable young people from getting addictions that could change the way they interact with the world. We've got too much money. Are you stupid? Instead, they put out utterly meaningless things like technological parental controls or ensuring that people under 18 can't physically open loot boxes. But again, that relies on children to tell the truth. I still have friends on Facebook who I'm going to guess are maybe 80 to 90 years old now because they lied about their birthday so they could sign up for it. Who amongst us didn't have obscenity screened at them in in-game lobbies for games that they were almost definitely too young to be playing at the time? I remember having vivid nightmares of the tank in Left 4 Dead 1 when I was about 10 years old. Everywhere we look, we are absolutely surrounded with gambling. If you load up YouTube and Twitch, you're probably going to get served a gambling ad with Kevin Hart in. If you take a break from that and load up TikTok or Instagram Reels, I made an entire video about how For You pages purposely mimic slot machines so you turn your brain off. I mean, things have gotten so cool in the world right now that you can stake money on predictions that you yourself could have a direct relationship to. Who needs a harmless scratch card over Christmas? Because if you're Elon Musk, you can bet on how many tweets you're going to post. How are you allowed to do that? You literally cannot get away from it. Even if I wanted to just play a casual game of FIFA away from the world of in-game loot boxes, the virtual kits in-game are filled to the brim with real-life sponsors for betting companies. The University of Bristol even found that a game between West Ham and the team that I've been supporting since I was a child, Aston Villa, there were 6,491 gambling messages plastered throughout. Over 50% of the entire broadcast was gambling. On what planet could we possibly escape this? I finally know what it feels like to be a coughing baby up against a hydrogen bomb.
This is where your gambling problem comes into play.
I don't have a gambling problem. I like to gamble.
One more dice roll. I'll fix all my problems, you see?
Overall, is there hope?
We are seeing more attention being paid to this issue. You know, that is how we started this conversation. And I think you are right to have observed this. More countries are taking action. So I think we will see more scrutiny. And with more scrutiny, there hopefully will be more improvements. But we do need to put pressure on your MPs, on your regulators to actually enforce the rules that we already have.
That is what makes all of this so much more difficult. The world is truly horrendous right now. People have so many other things to focus on. Why is it our responsibility to ensure that we're not accidentally consuming products with dark patterns that manipulate us and not, I don't know, the companies that are fucking doing it in the first place? Bro, I just want to play Halo. Is that too much to ask? I know it's the way of the world now, and I guess just how capitalism works, but why aren't these billion-dollar game companies being held accountable for what they're very obviously doing here? Surely the sheer fact that they had to add parental controls shows that they have a history of doing incredibly dodgy things, and now we just got to trust them that they're not going to do it all over again. They may profess that there's absolutely nothing wrong with their products, and the vulnerable children and young people who are sinking insane amounts of time into their products definitely aren't gambling. But then in the same breath, these companies will fight tooth and nail over keeping their PEGI 3 or PEGI 7 rating, so more of those same children can continue to buy and purchase their products without having to ask their parents for permission, presumably so it doesn't affect their bottom line. We're now living in a world where Balatro has a higher PEGI rating than a game that an Austrian court ruled in 2023 used illegal gambling. That seems totally fair. In dire situations like this, it's always good to actually take stock, step away from everything and appreciate what's going on around you. Well, you say that, but a few weeks ago when I was watching a lower league game of football, I zoned out for a hot second and did what I always do in public places, eavesdrop on the conversation of every human being in my immediate vicinity because I'm unfathomably nosy, where I overheard a group of people standing right next to me arguing over what bets they wanted to place before the first whistle blew. They stood there in the freezing cold, in a stadium filled to the brim with advertisements for online betting companies, glued to their screens, frantically scrolling through those same sites, looking at every possible outcome available to them, shouting and screaming over one another, asserting that their gamble was obviously going to come off and everybody should believe them. 60 minutes later, when the first goal went in, 2 of them left in total silence, presumably off to find the next sure thing. Meanwhile, I was still thinking about this burger that I ate. I think we can all figure out who the true winner in that situation was. Click on my head to see more videos.
Disclaimer.
Hello there, my little kitten, XD. I have noticed you have very nice bazonga honga dinga hawky lumpies. As a very nice man like I am, I have been standing outside your bedroom window every single night. Why won't you open? I am the nicest man you have ever seen.
Oh, hello. How did you get into my house? Well, good evening. Ladies, Lazos, and Lazos, welcome to the click. You smell absolutely amazing today. And don't let anyone else tell you otherwise, because I know. So, in line with this amazing wholesomeness, we're going to look at the creepiest DMs and messages that I could find on the internet. So basically, if you want to learn how to text people in this scary modern world, if you do anything but this that we're about to show in this video, you're fine. You're fine.
And don't think I forgot about you,
Tatum. How are you doing, Tatum? I see you there watching this video. Tatum. Now you're shocked. Are you surprised I knew your name? Yes, indeed. I'm watching you through the little phone camera. You see the phone camera on the top of your phone? Yes. So anyway, enjoy the video and stuff. I'm getting distracted. That's your fault, Tatum. Enjoy. Mwah. Anyways, respectfully, thanks for being a part of my life for the last 2 months. You won't hear or see from me again. Goodbye, Alexa.
I doubt that. Talk to you tomorrow, lol. You really blocked me? How immature.
I don't want you in my life anymore.
Weirdo. Is there a pair of my shorts at your house? Can I stomp on your balls? Adam, I thought you tried to call me back. I'm in your windows, Adam. You miss me?
Miss me with this entire relationship, more like it. Oh dear, yikes.
Isn't this just inclusive? It shows that anyone can be a creep.
Only wholesome vibes here today. Yay! He sent a PP pic and deleted it as soon as I made fun of it. Mission accomplished.
Wow, you're stunning. Only question for you. Naughties or more naughties first? Wink.
Lamau, why does it look like that? That's embarrassing. I can't believe you willingly sent that. Lamau, you deleted it?
Oh, this is how we do it. This is how we stop the pandemic of unsolicited PPs. You just make them so ashamed of themselves. You know, body shaming is usually a bad thing. Okay, I'm just gonna put that out there. But if someone sends you unsolicited PP pics, feel free to body shame to make them stop. I think that's a fair, a fair specification. Oh, yes.
Looking for a female that's into doing a lot of intimate things on a daily basis, active in r/teenagers.
Hey,
Age?
43.
You're 43 and active in r/teenagers? Why the specification on top? You're looking for someone like a third of your age. Great. I love your style. Considered selling pics at all? I'm 14. Oh, in that case, before I end up on creepy PMs, see you, enjoy your day. Hey, you doing okay? Yeah? I gotta ask, was the sad face because you'd be up for it, but a bit young? Because I'm not gonna lie, I still wanna buy. What the frick, man? You know full well I'm 14. The sad face is because there's frickin' P words in my DMs. Weirdo. Why do people, oh my, it's like literally, this individual was looking over the side of a cliff and be like, gee, here is like a tumbling horribleness that I really shouldn't step into. Let's step into it! Yay!
Could you knit a sweater for my cock?
And here is a sweater for the cock. Oh, that's so beautiful. You know, my